Get a puppy, they said. It'll be fun, they said. Hey guys, it's Philline and welcome to my podcast, Philline. This podcast is a safe space of talking about what it's like being in your 20s in the 20s. For this episode, we're going to be talking about the big, the bad, and the furry. We're talking about dogs and puppies. Everyone and their mother is getting either engaged, married, or getting puppies at this time. So we're going to talk about our little fluffy friends, some challenges, and things we should always keep in mind when it comes to these cute little furry animals. They're just so cute when I think about it. Anyways, let's get started. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Philline and welcome to Philline. We're going to talk about today puppies. Aren't they just the cutest? I just love dogs. And it's so funny because when I was younger, I didn't have a dog. Right now I have a half Bichon Frise and a poodle, I think. That's what he is. His name is Milo, the cutest little thing. But before that, I didn't have a dog. And the last time I had a dog before Milo was, I think, in the Philippines when I was 3. I had a dog and he was a lab and his name was Chivas. It was so cute. I'm pretty sure Chivas means cheese in Filipino, but don't quote me on that. But before we get to all the cuteness and the furriness, The Haunting of Bly Manor. I know I talked about it last episode, so I'm kind of finishing it up. It's a good show. Shit got real towards the end, and you guys should watch it. It's definitely worth it to get to that very last episode and really understand the story. It's confusing at first, for sure, but if you just hang in there, like the first season of Game of Thrones, it's going to be so good. And also, by the time this podcast comes out, we're going to be transitioning from spooky season to cold season to turkey season. It's going to be so good. Lots of eating, but make sure to keep to that diet and those fitness plans. We can't lose track because every time the year ends, we lose everything. We stop working now, we start eating more, and then by the time the new year comes around, you have a whole new New Year's resolution where you're trying to lose weight all over again. So don't forget and keep motivated. Anyways, this weekend I went to a winery and it was called the Working Dog Winery. It's in Robbinsville, New Jersey. And it's just such a beautiful place, especially for right now. And luckily the day that we went, it wasn't that cold outside. So we brought Leo, our corgi, and it's really cute. I mean, the name says it all. You can bring your dog and you can lay out blankets and buy wine and just have a good old time. So I suggest you guys check it out. I mean, maybe by the time you're listening to this, it's going to be a little cold for wineries, but next year you guys should definitely check it out. Now that we're on the topic of dogs, in the Philippines, my lab named Chivas, unfortunately, he already passed, but I remember him when I was young, and I was only like 3 or 4 when I really was around him. But I remember him a lot, and dogs always stay in your memory like that. But it's funny because after we left the Philippines and I grew up, that whole entire time before my family's dog, Milo, I was scared of dogs. I don't know if anyone remembers listening that knows me. I was petrified. My one friend had a husky and I was so scared because that dog standing up is taller than me. Mind you, I'm 5 foot and 3/4. Yes, the 3/4 is important, but those dogs were so scary to me and now they're the most beautiful thing in the world. And it also helped that everybody around me had dogs. I mean, I was petrified, but how was I supposed to go to my friend's house if I couldn't get past my fear of all the dogs that everyone had? So that was really helpful. But then fast forward to maybe 5 or 6 years later, whenever we got Milo, I was a sophomore in college, I believe. Honestly, it's been so long ago, I don't remember. But when we got him, oh my God, the funniest story. My dad actually adopted him already and didn't tell us. Only my brother knew at the time. So it was funny. He printed out a picture and brought it home to my family and literally my mom started crying. Not for a good thing. She was actually like upset. I think because she doesn't like surprises, but she was like saying, who's going to take care of him, blah, 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 and started freaking out. But obviously later she fell in love when she saw him for the first time. And ever since then, to be honest, before Milo, our family was close or whatever, of course, but I feel like because we got Milo, we have that kind of energy of unconditional love, and just going home to that every day just was really so good for us as a whole. And we were honestly in a much better mood and energy after we got him. That's why when I moved away recently, I moved about 45 minutes from my family's house. That was one of the biggest things I was honestly sad about because whenever I had a bad day, Milo was there. Don't get me wrong. My boyfriend is definitely one of the best people I go to when I'm having a bad day, but dogs are just a whole different type of energy, and just having him there all the time was so nice. So when I was thinking of moving out, it was really heartbreaking, and that was like one of the biggest reasons that were kind of stopping me from wanting to move. And even for my boyfriend, he has a family dog. Her name is Lacey. She's the cutest little Yorkie. I love her. She's so, so cute. But we both came from a family that had dogs. So naturally, when we moved out, we weren't not going to have a dog forever. When you already have a dog presence, it's hard to not have one. So of course, after a few months of settling in, we decided to look at dogs. And my dream dog, ever since I was a little baby, was a corgi. And when I tell you that was the only thing that was on our minds for a few weeks, it was literally the only thing on our minds. So we looked at a lot of different places and decided to adopt our cute little corgi. And his name is Leo. He's the cutest thing ever. He's a tri-colored Pembroke Welsh corgi. Try saying that 3 times, because I just re-recorded saying that name 4 or 5 times because it was the biggest tongue twister of my life. Like, holy shit. Anyways, he is so cute. As soon as we brought him home, he went directly into the crate like it was no problem. Crate training him was so easy, and I'm assuming it's because where he lived, he was used to sleeping in crates all the time. But even going to the bathroom, like potty training, it was really easy. He only had 2 accidents in the apartment before he got used to the schedule. And on top of that, I got the potty bell. So every time he has to go to the bathroom, he'll go and ring it and basically tell us that he needs to go to the bathroom. However, he's starting to take advantage of it, because let me tell you, a few days ago it was pouring disgustingly, and one of the times he rang the bell, we had to walk him for 30 minutes and tell me how he didn't even go. He did not go to the bathroom. He didn't pee and he didn't poop. So tell me how after these 30 minutes he looks up at us and starts whining and giving us puppy dog eyes. Like, Leo, you rang the bell to bring you outside. So don't be crying to us. But obviously at the same time we were feeling bad. So of course we brought him back inside. But he's such a character. There are so many stories. Even just now, we've had him for 2 months and he's only 4 months old. There's so many things about him that just makes him such a character in his own type of separate energy that's different from mine and Marco's. But anyways, my family, just like a lot of other families, during the pandemic, there were so many purchases for puppies. I think I looked it up and there were about 5.7 million new purchases of puppies all over the world when COVID started in March and even in September. So when you guys are thinking of getting a puppy, or if you already have a puppy, you already know there's a lot of things to consider before you want to get one. First things first, where do you live? And that means that where you live has to be puppy friendly. So if you do have roommates, I know you got to make sure that they're also okay with puppies, and they have to be okay with kind of a messy lifestyle, because puppies at first are very nippy. They like to bite at things, and they're not going to give you time to relax or really breathe, to be honest. Second, is your lifestyle good for puppies? Your schedule is going to change quite a bit, at least until they're okay to be on their own. That means giving up late night events, hanging out with your friends super late at night, unless you're okay to bring them, which I'm blessed to have the friends where I can bring my dog, because without that, I honestly wouldn't be able to see them after 9 or 10 p.m. We were lucky that Leo was crate trained because the nights weren't as sleepless. However, my family's dog, Milo, I still remember when he was a puppy, and those were brutal. He had separation anxiety, and whenever he went to bed or even just left the house, you would hear him whining and crying and scratching at things. And that is so heartbreaking, you know? Even though they're just crying because they don't want to be put in the crate or they feel kind of separated from the family, it's still really sad, because if you think about it, they're such wholesome animals, and it honestly just breaks my heart. But that's something to consider too, because if you're looking forward to having a full night for a little while, they're not as bad as babies, I'm sure, but even having to wake up early for them. And at first, puppies, the general rule is if they're under 1 year, you're going to take their age and months plus 1. So for example, Leo, he's only 4 months old, plus 1 is 5. Those are the amount of hours that he can hold his pee. And everyone's training is different, but us personally, we were training him to be able to hold it overnight, because once you're sleeping, same as people, your systems kind of shut down and they're on rest mode. So you don't have to go to the bathroom as often as if you're awake. But if you had a dog like my family's dog, Milo, if they're up and have separation anxiety, they're going to have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. On top of that, do you got the monies for a puppy? Yes, I'm saying it weird, but do you really? Because the initial payment isn't just the only thing that's expensive, I'll tell you that. When you purchase a dog, on top of that, there's also vet visits, and those vet visits are not cheap. And they're also not just one visit. You're going to have to go multiple times, because let's say your dog needs to be dewormed. That's already like 3 visits right there. And also you have vaccinations. And if you want to get them neutered, honestly, it was a lot more than I was expecting it to be. And luckily we have the 2 of us to kind of help pay the bills. But you have to kind of consider that as well. Also, on top of that, you should also do research on the best breed that's for you, because some dogs like to sleep all the time, like my family's dog, and some dogs are like Leo, who likes to be outdoors all the time. So you kind of have to think about that too, depending on your schedule and your lifestyle. And also, not many people really think of this, but what are your long-term plans? Do you want to be traveling around the world? Do you want to maybe go on mission trips or go to other countries? How is your pet going to be integrated in those plans? And maybe some people think that's too dramatic to think long term, but what if you do have to go and travel, or you expect to be moving from one place to another? It's also a lot of stress on your pet as well. And that's what not many people really consider or realize, that there's actually a huge responsibility involved in taking care of dogs. And again, they're not like kids or babies, because once they're older, you can really leave them at home, no problem, without them having to bite anything. I even have friends who, just moving from an apartment to a house, it was really hard for their dog to kind of get used to that setting. And even though they were potty trained before, now that they moved, they still have to retrain them based on the new environment. As ironic as it is, a lot of people are saying, oh, the quarantine is a great time to have a dog and raise them. However, when we start going back to our normal routine, if that even is possible anytime soon, that also means a whole new schedule for the dog as well. For example, Leo, I feed him 3 times a day, and because we're at home, we're able to do that. But once we go into work, we might have to transition into something that's twice a day meal. Or what are the backup plans of when we're at work and we can't feed him? Will we have to get an automatic feeder? Or are we going to have to go and hire someone to walk him in the middle of the day? It's a lot of options, but it's also something serious to think about. And that's kind of what concerns me right now, because so many people got these dogs, but they only are able to take care of them because of the time that they have right now because of quarantine. But when things go back to normal, what is the backup plan? And I get worried that maybe some families will realize that they can't actually take care of their puppies. And that's what's scary, because that's a future of an increase in homeless shelters or in other places that puppies really don't belong in. I also saw this really sad video on Twitter, and it was basically this couple that was fighting, and she was holding a dog, and because she was mad, she threw that poor thing. And that's also something that concerns me, because are these families okay to take care of the dogs? There's so many things to put into consideration, but only the future can tell what's going to happen, and I hope that every family that got a puppy thought really well about this decision. But honestly, I feel like kids in our generation are more animal loving and more aware of the fact that they do need and require love and attention. So I think for people our age, it's a little bit better, because we do put them into consideration when we're thinking about our future. And honestly, in our 20s, it's a perfect time to have a dog. I mean, they're really going to teach us how to be responsible. And even on nights where we are out late, they give us a reason to wake up early, basically get up and not be in bed all day. But also within the same effect, dogs can help us stay at home. And low key, there's excuses you can make where you basically can be lazy and stay at home. And I'm definitely guilty of charge. I've definitely gone to parties where I wanted to leave early and simply use the excuse that I had to go home and take care of my dog because, I mean, I do have to take care of my dog, but it's just that every reason for me to leave a little bit earlier. Also, dogs are a really good way to start meeting new people. I mean, where we are at this age, we're at post-college, where college was basically a time where we can go and socialize whenever we want. But now we basically have to force that kind of time into our schedule. And the best time to do that is to go to the dog park and have your dog associate with other dogs. And you can talk to them about everything dogs or everything life and just get to know more people. Dogs are a great icebreaker topic, and now is the time more than ever to really increase our circle, our connections, our conversational skills that are critical for something similar to the workforce environment or even just for our social needs during quarantine. And truth be told, I'd rather be spending my money on dog things rather than physical items like clothing that I'll only wear maybe twice or 3 times at a time. So it also helps people in our age to kind of budget and figure out ways that we can save money without really being distracted about other physical things. Dogs have also been known to help with depression, anxiety, and the feeling of loneliness, and I feel like in our 20s that feeling happens quite often, but having a dog will really help to at least fill up that little void in your chest that's missing some type of unconditional love and attention. Because the transition from having a schedule basically how you want it in college to a repetitive 9 to 5 schedule, it gets lonely, and it also gets really difficult to make time for your friends and do things similar to your hobbies. So having a dog right there can help to kind of alleviate those feelings that every day seems to be warping into the next. There's so much pressure that is involved with us becoming adults and figuring out what the adult life is, like mortgages, bills, car payments, working, figuring out a career and life path. And having that dog right next to you makes the transition a little less hard and a lot more wholesome and gives you a moment to step back and relax and breathe a little. On a side note, do you know what actually kind of confuses me? Why aren't there that many dog cafes or dog bars or dog restaurants in New Jersey? There's a lot in North Carolina, South Carolina, all the way down to Florida, and even on the other side of the US, like California. Why doesn't New Jersey have more of that? I feel like because we're such a big state on animals, why don't we have more of it? It's so weird. I live in a town that almost every family has a dog, and I'm still confused why there aren't that many restaurants where dogs are allowed. I feel like either I haven't been to many of them or they're just separated and more farther apart from each other, but if there are any dog cafes or bars that you guys recommend, let me know. I'm interested to see, and I'd love to bring my dog there. But anyways, if you guys are starting to train your dogs or if they're starting to teeth, a few things that I've learned is that first, food is the best way to their heart. I'm sure everyone already knows this, but do you know what kind of food? I recently just went to the vet and they had told me that if any ingredients in treats or kibble or any type of dog food have anything raw, that's actually bad for your dog. It's extra protein that they actually don't need, and they might have a surplus of protein in their diet, and that also is bad for them. So I would suggest you guys, if you could look at the food and maybe the treats that you're giving your dog. If there are raw ingredients, it's not one of the best things to give to your dog. If you still have a puppy, I do recommend the brand Hill Science Diet. I think that's what it's called. I'll put the link in the description. But it is vet recommended and it is anti-raw food, so I think it's a very good source of diet for your dog. Another thing I learned raising Leo is that there are different dogs with different behaviors, and I'm sure that's also an obvious fact, but I didn't know that there are dogs that bite your feet as well. Leo is a herding dog, so in his history, he was in charge of gathering all the cows and horses, and to get their attention, they would bite their feet. Isn't that the cutest backstory? Yeah, it's cute until he's also biting your own feet, your toes, your hands, your fingers, your arms, and everything else. That being said, I think Corgi's a little bit more difficult in training how to not bite because it's just in their natural history to do so. And that's another thing to consider too, because dogs require a lot of consistency and repetition for them to realize that the biting is wrong. And that also requires a lot of time and patience from your end and a lot of training time as well. Another thing I've learned and observed raising Leo and watching him grow up is that scolding dogs and screaming at them and saying no is never the best way to go in terms of teaching them what's right and wrong. Actually, sometimes when you raise your voice at them, they get more excited and think that you're playing with them. Like Leo, if I get annoyed that he bites me and I say ouch and I pull my hand too fast, he thinks it's a game. So he goes and attacks it again and bites it even harder. And I just cringe and die inside, but I'm so patient because I know that he's still a baby and he doesn't know what's wrong and right. Basically, what we've been doing is that if he bites, we say ouch. And after the second time, if he doesn't stop, we basically say uh-oh. And that's kind of his warning that it's time to go in the crate for a little timeout. Speaking of timeouts, I thought the timeouts were wrong for a dog because, you're basically disciplining them by putting them in the place that they're supposed to love in the crate. But it's actually quite effective if you do it right. If you're going to use the crate as something that they love to be in and as a timeout space for them to clear their head, when they are misbehaving, if you just do the simple go to bed command without any negative tone and basically tell them calmly to go inside and maybe close the door for about 2 to 3 minutes and just give him the time to relax his nerves and start to sleep a little, he'll actually find it really relaxing. So before, when we were raising Milo, I thought the timeouts weren't really the best direction to go, but this goes in the same direction as training kids. You have to make the timeout session somewhat peaceful for them, not something negative or as a sign that they did something bad, but just a space for them to clear their head and kind of calm down from their aggressive behavior. And I've seen a few posts on social media about different ways to do timeout for just children as well. So I think the way that we are kind of approaching timeout sessions with Leo is something I'd like to carry in my future children as well. Making the timeout space some time for them to relax and calm down. I think that's a great direction for both parenting, for raising kids and dogs. I mean, for kids, you can definitely get more creative. It's more of a time for them to maybe settle down, listen to some music or color, or just sit down in their corner and meditate or something. But it's the same type of idea when it comes to puppies. Another thing I've learned or observed really is that dogs' personalities are just so different, and it's so funny. I know, again, that's an obvious one, but a perfect example is that my dog Milo, he doesn't really socialize with us or interact really, or really tell us anything. He just likes to sleep a lot. But Leo, as a puppy, it's so funny because corgis, I think, are more involved and communicative than Milo's breed, but I think it's so funny because he'll drop a toy and start crying and staring down, and maybe that's a sign for him crying that, hey guys, can you come help me? I dropped my toy and I can't pick it up, even though there's a whole staircase at the end of the couch that he can just go to and pick up the toy. And also, corgis love to make yawning noises and they love to whine. I have never once really heard Milo whine a lot. But Leo whines at almost everything. He'll stare at a squirrel and start whining because he wants to be with the squirrel. He'll lay down and just start whining because he's tired. He'll start yawning and make a high-pitched sound because he's tired. He's just so funny. But that's why I love him, because having a dog at this age is just so nice, because we're going through something really crazy out in the world with the protests and COVID and everything. And having this dog is such a good distractor from it. Not necessarily forgetting that these things are happening, but just helping us handle and move through the motions. So I think having a dog is really good for our 20s. But it really is only if you're willing to sacrifice your social life, because I cannot stress this enough. I stopped being out late since we got Leo. I mean, honestly, I've kind of stopped doing that since I turned 24. Yeah, I'm 24. I almost forgot. But ever since I did turn 24, the kind of 21-year-old lifestyle changed, and I was more focused on doing more productive things and kind of looking forward into the future, into adulthood. And ever since then, I've kind of stopped spending so much going to bars and spending so much on food. And indirectly, having a dog has helped me really kind of control all that. Another thing that kind of scares me right now is the fact that dogs can get COVID. I don't think it's as common as the normal person-to-person interaction and you get COVID, but there is a chance that you can get it. And that's kind of scary because obviously there are people who are carriers, and it's important to kind of make sure and keep that in the back of your head that there is a chance that your dog can get it. So when you are socializing with your puppy, it's still important to kind of make sure that they're not interacting too much with people who potentially could have COVID. Now that we're back on the topic of COVID, post-COVID life is going to be a little bit different from your dog being used to seeing you every day, every second. So it's important that while you have them, it's important that you help them practice things like crate training and leaving them at home a few times, whether it's just to leave them for a few hours to go to the park or something. It's important that they still are trained to the idea that you guys are not going to be home all day, every day. However, at the end of the day, I'm just honestly blessed we got a corgi, and I'm sure every family who got a dog also feels the same way because they're our best friend, they're our security guard, they're our cuddle buddy on both good days and bad days, and they've taught us to be super responsible and have an established routine that maybe not all of us had before coronavirus happened. And honestly, it's taught me so much about being patient and being kind of a parent without the responsibility of kids. And on top of that, it's really helped me and my boyfriend have a good practice of handling responsibilities and taking care of something else besides ourselves. Even on bad days when we're both stressing out, maybe because of work or something, Leo always comes around and helps us kind of bring a smile back to our faces. So I would definitely say, if you want to get a puppy, you should definitely get a puppy. Just know that it's a huge responsibility. And the best therapist has fur and 4 legs, but also remember that they are also animals and require your attention and love. Alright, you guys, and that's it. That's the end of our cute, fluffy little episode. Some takeaways. Consider your current situation before getting a puppy. If you get one, you won't regret it, but it's definitely going to be a lot of responsibility and work. And finally, these cute little animals will unconditionally love you for their entire lifetime. And that's something that every family honestly needs, whether it's a dog or any other animal, because all other animals are also super unconditional. So beg your parents, if you still live at home, for that pet. And if you don't live at home, definitely consider one because they definitely will keep you sane during these times and will be a positive energy in your life. And that's something that we all need, especially during these tough times. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for listening in and tuning in and listening to this cute podcast episode. I had so much fun talking to you guys about dogs, and I just love animals. So if you guys have all your pets, I would love for you guys to share it and tag me in them, and I'd love to see all your pet pictures. So yeah, if you guys ever want to have doggy dates or talk about more dog things, feel free to message me and we can talk about it. If you have any more questions about pets, also let me know and we can definitely talk about it in a future episode. My dog's Instagram, yes, my dog has an Instagram and I love it so much and I give it the most attention compared to my other accounts. It's king_Leo_the_corgi. So yeah, if you guys want to go and follow, check it out and be ready for some cuteness. And of course, if you have any other questions or topic suggestions or things you'd like me to talk about being in our 20s, feel free to message me at Philline Podcast. That's FEELINPHILLINE Podcast. I'd love to hear from you guys, so please don't be strangers. All right, and that's it for now. Till next time. Bye.